can go so fast. I would prefer, very good delivery so that I can follow what you're saying. If you go at a very high speed that I cannot catch up, then I lose your point. Even if you have mentioned it, if I cannot, hear it very clearly, then you lose the points. Yes, and I would prefer fewer constructed points rather than giving me a bunch of points that it does not prove your case.
Well, just a quick question. So maybe they have asked you before. So what school are you guys from?
新庄.
新庄 High School?
Yes.
新庄高中. So why you call best Pennis?
Just very
Penny like in Chinese is 电视, and debaters also
Penny
called
辨识.
电视.
Okay.
Yeah, so best debaters, best pennies.
I thought you would just use the best, 罗马拼音辨识.
Oh, no.
Either way, I get you. So actually, maybe you might want to take off your mask when you speak, because on the earlier, because someone, if they can't hear you, you might get points off. Just a suggestion.
Okay.
It's up to you.
It's your personal preference.
If you can speak loud
Yeah.
enough,
It's your personal preference.
it doesn't matter. It's just that the other group earlier, because they're wearing masks, so we couldn't hear them. So I have to ask.
Remember to keep time on your end.
我要去猜一下.
I use what's better now. Are you guys ready?
Yeah.
Okay. So my pro-constructive will start now. Greetings. The government's duty is to protect the basic rights of every individual. However, the current social welfare system is being tested and leaves many people in need unable to receive timely help. Therefore, a universal basic income is needed to ensure that everyone has the resources to live a decent life. Universal basic income, or UBI, refers to regular cash payment made to given population with minimal or no requirement to receive the money. However, by granting UBI per family according to the median FCSU, or food, clothing, shelter, and utility cost, around 12,300 NTD per month per person, a total of 3.05 trillion NTD of state expenditure per year will be required, which we will conveniently retrieve by doubling the tax in the current situation. Implementing UBI will bring the following benefit. First, the current incompleteness of subsidies of the disadvantaged can be solved by unconditional grants. Article 155 of the Constitution mentioned that the state should provide appropriate assistance and relief to people who are old, weak, disabled, unable to live, or suffer from extraordinary disasters. However, the main tested social welfare system in Taiwan is unable to fulfill this purpose due to many reasons. For instance, the Taiwan Civic Dialogue Association mentioned that even the long-term unemployed, or those who only earn a meager income from part-time jobs, will be considered as capable of work and counted as receiving basic wage by the government. With their difficulties neglected, many unable to make a living are forced to live in poverty, leading to increased health and crime expenses. To illustrate, Business Today report a young high school graduate with no parents stealing instant noodles in a supermarket due to the inability to receive low-income household subsidies just because he reached adulthood. In addition, since the real estate is also taken into account, the vulnerable may still be ineligible if they inherit an estate. Yahoo News mentioned, although the three brothers and John Hua were on the verge of starving to death due to the inherited ancestral Sanho Yuan from their parents, they were unable to apply for low-income subsidies. After being sent to the hospital, the eldest brother died of malnutrition. Those problems highlight the urgent need for a UBI, ensuring that everyone's basic needs are met by covering those in need through unconditional grants. According to the report, not only did hygiene significantly improve, but the rate of underweight and uneducated children also significantly decreased after implementing UBI in a poor village in India. Another case in Namibia shows that UBI dropped crime rate by 20%, saving social costs on crime. The reporter also stated that every dollar invested in children's health and education can save up to $9 of social costs on health and crime. This shows that a UBI can effectively help those in need and save social costs. Second, a UBI can stimulate people to choose what they want to do by freeing them from economic pressure, encouraging social innovation and economic growth. A fellow Medium report in Japan found that under experimental UBI, there were 40% more people who wanted to start a business themselves than without UBI. Another interview by Crossing also showed that the interviewees were unhappy about the current jobs and work environment, but couldn't quit due to the economic burden. They further stated that if UBI was given, they would definitely quit their current job and seek a better work A UBI can further support their will to start their own business by providing them capital. The reporter mentioned a case in Namibia in which a young mother with 7 children was interviewed, originally only earning half of the amount required to survive. She saved enough money to allow her to sell 250 loaves of bread per day with the help of a UBI. Besides, the implementation of UBI can also provide an economic basis for people who engage themselves in unpaid working status, such as house workers and volunteers, without needing to rely on others for financial support. UBI allows them to live without needing to worry about money, granting them a safety net to resist abuse from those originally sponsoring them and the ability to live independently. In conclusion, implementing UBI will not only help more people in need to leave poverty, but also allow people to pursue their passions without financial
Time.
issues.
You guys ready? Okay, start. Good afternoon, respected judges and debaters. We're strongly got a resolution. We live in a materialistic reality. Therefore, making such ideal policy like UBI is impractical. Even money without men's tax seems equal and efficient at first sight, but we'll prove that opposite is true. People who live in poverty need more than just money. UBI has many flaws. Not only extremely expensive, the substantial change in tax rate is efficient is also a big concern. Please note that we are not denying the potential benefit that UBI could bring. We just state that it costs outweigh the pros. Contention 1. There are two main issues of operating UBI which makes it impractical and hard to sustain. Issue number 1, it is too expensive. The costs outweigh the benefits. A paper from economist John Kay from the University of Oxford studied UBI level in many countries such as Finland, Switzerland, and US, and conclude that enacting UBI at a level which can guarantee an acceptable standard of living is impossibly expensive. The cost of sufficient UBI scheme would be extremely high according to the International Labour Office, which estimates average cost equivalent to 20 to 30% of GDPs in most countries. So how much would a UBI actually cost? According to a proposal by UBI Taiwan, each Taiwanese individual would receive between 10,000 to 16,000 NT dollars per month. If we use the statistics from Taiwan's National Department of Household Affairs, that was estimated that there's 23.3 million people as of January. If we modify the number by 13,000, which is the median of the UBI monthly paycheck, a monthly UBI costs 300 billion NTD and 3 trillion a year. In contrast, welfare programs are more helpful, and according to the Executive General Office, only cost 16 billion NTD as of the last year. Issue number 2, the system of UBI is actually unequal, causing waste of resources. First of all, universal basic income would be just like universal. That means that everyone, regardless of how poor or rich, would get the same amount of money. Even millionaires receive monthly payment they don't need. If Taiwanese government took all the money it spends on AIDS and welfare program now, and divided the amount of the entire population, the poor would receive much less than they do now. Therefore, UBI isn't the most effective way to help people in need. Second, a work and economy marketing system is made up not just for employees, but also employers. UBI pressures is unfair to employers in 2 ways. 1, it could discourage employees from working, leading to insufficient labor personnel. 2, as employers usually earn higher incomes that face a higher progressive taxation. This punishes the upper and middle classes unfairly. This is no evidence that adding more surtax to wealthy will increase economic growth. It may harm growth because it discourages saving and investment, especially since Taiwan's Center of Economic Strength has already shifted from small and medium-sized enterprises to big business groups such as TSMC. These factors ultimately lead to a collapse of the economy. Third, there is too much uncertainty regarding how much UBI reduces inequality in the real world. First, UBI experiments have been too small and short-lived to affect a large-scale problem. Only few countries have adopted any form of UBI on a large scale, and the evidence from this country is mixed. This means that UBI is a poorly targeted policy and makes a policy an inefficient use of financial resources. Condition 2, UBI didn't address the roots of the causes in poverty and could even deteriorate the current situation. First of all, UBI would create a new class of people dependent on the government for their livelihood. Economists also indicate that government should focus on creating jobs and raising wages, and that work is more reliable and sustainable way of poverty than unconditional government assistance. The premise of universal basic income is no track record of failure and hurts reception and increased dependence on the government. Based on the
crossfire. You have 3 minutes.
Okay. You ask the question first.
Okay. So if the purpose of UBI is to help the poverty, why don't we just focus on them and give it to everyone?
Oh, so do you know our policy? Like, we want to implement UBI, and the taxation will be like the poor won't gonna get taxed, but the medium class, they get paid and get taxed. Like they receive $10,000 and gets taxed $10,000 because they don't need money. And if the richest, they got taxed much higher because all you want to say is that the more people earn, the more responsibility they should take. So if we implement a UBI, we will.
But how do you distinguish the poor and rich? Like, just like what you say, that welfare system, like they have the
So
wisdom.
how we distinguish? So how we distinguish is how we double up the taxes and the there's current tax system like up
But
like
you
more
just
than.
say that welfare system and means that it's hard to like give it people to everyone. But before that, means that is to like develop that to distinguish who is in need and who are not in need.
So
But
we'll
you
use
say
the
that you want to
taxation
tax into a high.
So we'll use the taxation rate to distinguish.
Okay.
So I want to ask a question. So I want to make it clear for a few contention that you make. You think that UBI is impractical and too expensive. So I would want to ask you that. Do you know how we get our funds? We mentioned it in the first constructive.
You mean your funds?
Yeah,
You
our
say
funds
that basically on
sources.
tax.
Yeah. So our fund. So current Taiwan get 3.2 trillion per year from taxes, and so we were going to double up the taxes and spend the extra tax to the UBI. So
But
we'll get
double all the tax is that very feasible? Like, because we already have like in welfare system there already has 600 billion that's spent per year, and you are now double on the tax, and then to the people.
I know we're double up the riches, so that's why the tax rate is poor. So we're double up the riches, double up the middle classes, and we're gonna pay it to the poorest. Okay, so let's see that we're gonna double up 3.25 trillion and then spend it on the UBI. So the second one, you said that it will cause dependency on government, right?
Yeah.
So we have a few evidence say that UBI won't cause dependency. You'll search further, so I'll explain for you. So we have evidence says that Alaska implemented UBI. It
Yeah.
caused
Why
the.
Alaska? Alaska's very different from Taiwan.
Well, Alaska. I'll take this to it. It will stand that if implemented UBI, if people receive money, it won't cause people to rely on the UBI. It will cause people to work, and
Why?
that's what the statistic says.
Like,
It said that it will increase 17%, and we have.
Time. Okay. So, rebuttal. Do you need prep time?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Tell me when to stop.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
My time starts now. Okay, so the major questions we faced were how we got the money. So by flipping the tax, by doubling it, Taiwan's current tax is 3 trillion. So by doubling it, we will acquire enough money to do UBI. And so they say that we help poor, and how do we indicate it? So that when we double the tax rates, because the tax of Taiwan is based on income, so those who are richer pay more. So it's basically a redistribution of the money of Taiwan. So the government is not actually giving out money. It's just that the rich can pay more to the poor. And what benefit does a rich get? So when we pay the poor can improve, the whole environment improves, and there will be more people who go to work, and the rich will benefit from it. And also the poor people will buy stuff. which the rich will also benefit from. So they are willing to pay this tax. Okay, so the main points that the con side said is one, that it's impractical, which we already told you by the system that it's possible. Two, they say it's not effective, but by taxing by flipping the tax and giving UBI, it's actually us taking more money from the rich and giving it to the poor than the current situation. So we're still doing better than the current situation. And the third thing they say is that there are a lot of people who will rely on UBI once UBI is implemented. But here we have a lot of evidence saying that work rates actually increase when UBI is implemented. For example, in Alaska, the part-time work rate has increased by 17%. In Iran, the employment increased by 40%. In Finland, the low-paying dead-end jobs, the people who originally were working in low-paid jobs, they were more willing to work in better jobs and receive UBI because it could support their living. So what we want to say is that we have a lot of evidence from other UBI experiments and countries that are actually doing UBI that work rate will increase. But you guys haven't gave us evidence about how or why Taiwanese people will decrease because of UBI. So now we would like to hear some evidence about work rates dropping later, and also we would like to know how you guys help the poor that's currently not in the welfare system, because like we said, the Zhanghua brothers who starved to death, the instant noodle thief, and we also have another evidence saying that there's a Japanese PhD who felt ashamed to go get UBI because she felt like she was going to be she felt like she was going to be discriminated. So if there are so many people outside of the social welfare, why can't we do UBI to make sure that they can keep on living and make sure that they won't die? That's why we need UBI. It's because we can protect the poor people from dying, and we can also relieve people from abusive relationships and abusive work environments, so that they don't need to rely on the people giving them money, and they have the freedom to choose whether they want to continue the abusive relationships and environments, or they can leave and pursue better working environments, better paying jobs, and also with the money, the poor can also go learn some working techniques and get into the jobs, because with the money, they don't have to worry about the food, and then they can go learn more techniques and get into work, and the work rate also raises, as our evidence shows. So basically, what we want them to clarify is why work rates will decrease, and give us some evidence, and also how they are going to help the poor. Thank you.
Do you need prep time?
I'll take 1 minute prep time.
Okay, you tell me when to stop. You also have to keep the time.
By the time you can just.
Has passed. 1:15 now.
Alright, I'm gonna begin my rebuttal speech. Is that okay? You guys good?
Yes.
Alright, sure. Alright, so first of all, I'm gonna rebut a big argument in this debate, which is so far the tax issue. They said that they're going to tax middle and high income people, and that if you take away 10K from middle and high class, then you will also get more benefits of the 10K. But right here, I have evidence that says increasing tax, and especially wealth tax, is bad for the economy. Raising taxes leads to less discretionary income. Those paying income taxes will be left with less discretionary income to expend after income tax has been disputed. This is likely to lead to lower levels of household spendings and lower levels of their savings as well. One research almost invariably shows a negative relationship between income taxes rates and the GDP. The study found that a tax increase of 1% of GDP resulted in an estimate of 3% GDP decline after 3 years. Now, this is for normal taxes, but they also said they're going to tax the wealthy. So, that brings up the question, is a wealth tax good or bad? Does it really just redistribute, or are we harming other things? Well, first of all, we must understand that the wealth inequality has increased, but it's not exploding. Of all the possible types of ways to collect revenue, wealth taxes are the least desirable. First, wealth taxes are insufficient and ineffective because wealth is inherently more difficult to measure. Private held companies, for example, are not traded in public markets, which means that they don't have stock prices by which one can objectively gauge their value. Also, financial assets can be hidden or moved around. With a click of a mouse, or converted into other assets. So you might end up with less revenue than you expect. Secondly, in our constructive speech, we already mentioned that we're going to have $6 trillion NT dollars if we're going to have an UBI, because the number of Taiwanese people is 23 million. So that means that even with a double tax rate like they say, since the current tax rate is 2.54 trillion, we're still going to end up with 1 trillion short. And secondly, they wanted evidence on how Taiwanese people decrease their work incentive because of UBI. First, I would like everyone to notice that Taiwan has not implemented UBI before. Therefore, we cannot find according evidence. But if we look at evidence from other places, we can see that economist Alan Stranger says that a strong economy relies on an element of uncertainty. UBI removes this uncertainty and therefore eliminating incentive to work. This has a devastating impact, especially on Taiwan, because according to the National Development Council, Taiwan's labor shortages are already predicted to reach 400,000. A smaller labor force would mean lower economic output and lower tax revenue to invest in the future. We cannot risk this happening, as it would endanger the whole economy. Another thing I would like to rebut is that actually, welfare is actually not a bad system as they say. Welfare is a projected and it is a needed assistance for disadvantaged individuals because they can give according assistance. Not everyone needs money to get out of poverty. Maybe you have health problems, maybe you have addiction. Welfare can give more than just money, while UBI only gives money to the poor. And also, they brought up experiments from other countries, such as India. But in India, they have a lower economy than Taiwan. And indeed, these schemes have helped improve recipients' livelihoods and their health. But nothing is revealed about how long this UBI can command in these experiments. The federal Canadian government funded 75% of their schemes as well, and they only started from 1978 to 1979. That's only 1 year. Of all the experiments concluded, only Alaska's experiment is still standing to today, and that is only because that they have a natural resource of oil, and that they have a 30 times smaller population than Taiwan. So that's why that they could continue this for so long. If you take away all these sources and compare them to Taiwan, we do not have the ability to do that currently, even if you guys double the tax welfare.
Alright,
Thank you.
second round crossfire.
I will use the press time. 这边是要随机会回答听众的问题。我想讲的老师的话，会回答。
也有那个
We need to stick to
工业
the
关系。
You guys need the correct time to start.
We need to find
Okay,
it.
sure.
Okay, we found it.
Okay, so I'll stop.
Okay.
Okay, so how did you get the $6 trillion?
Alright, I'm going to do the math for it here. So currently the Taiwanese population is 23 million, around that range, right? According to UBI Taiwan, if we're going to implement UBI, every person would get from $10,000 to $16,000. Now let's just get the median of $13,000 there. If you multiply $13,000 by 23 million, you get an estimate about $6 trillion.
No, you get $3 trillion. We calculated it.
$3 trillion?
$3 trillion.
Yes.
Oh,
Because
that's times 12 months.
So the average of per person to live is around 121 thousand. No, 1,200 Taiwanese dollars. So we multiply it by the people, and we get 3.05 trillion. And with the taxes, the current tax we get is 3.2 trillion. So by doubling the taxes, we can get the funds, and the wealth will pay the taxes because we're not adding wealth tax, we're just doubling the current taxes. So we're not adding wealth tax, so there's no problem with potential wealth tax.
Wait a second. Wait, where are you doubling this tax from? Because you're doubling tax, but where are you going to get it from? The wealthy people, right?
We're getting it from everyone who currently pays tax now, just that they have to pay more. We're not
But
only
in your
getting it from
rebuttal speech, didn't you say that you're not going to tax the lower
No,
income
because
people?
in the current system, the poverty
Right.
don't need to pay tax. So what we're taxing the people who need to pay tax. And however, we tax them twice.
Twice the amount
Yes,
of the current tax now.
yes.
And you're not going to expect like a rebellion from the people.
No, because with the work rates increased, the companies will make revenues because we have many evidence, just like Alaska or Iran, the work rates all increase, and we have a evidence here that says the Nordic countries have high corporate taxes, so
Right,
their
you
tax
say-
rate is high, but the companies still choose to go there because they have good environment, good employees, and also have a good system.
Okay, but just like you asked us if we can give any evidence of Taiwan decreasing their work rate because of UBI, you cannot prove anything with other studies from other countries.
No,
You
but
just
you
say
haven't
positives.
given other examples of other countries decreasing in work rate. You only gave something an economist said, but the real examples, the proof says that the work rates will actually increase because all the experiments saw a work increase. So you can't just tell me that the economists said that, so that will happen.
So you want an evidence from an actual country that sees their work rate decrease?
Yes.
I will give you that evidence later.
Okay. So we can still get the taxes because the companies won't move away. And I want to ask you a question. How are you going to?
Summary. Do you need prep time?
Yes.
Yes.
第一个先是等到你有办法记住，然后第二个就是说工作
照片
的
你自己
详细，
在这样，工作的详细。对。
然后还有就是你要说就是因为工作日上升，所以他会去工作，他去工作就赚更多钱，所以不会吃到钱，因为他愿意投资这个环境。然后第一个就是制度规则。然后你要是不愿意这样子，没有实力。
Okay, my summary will start. Now, so at the current construction, we said that the current system has a lot of incompleteness, and no matter from the real as they will count as your property, and no matter the calculation have a lot of flaws. And we have mentioned a few cases like John Hall Brothers or still an instant noodles from a supermarket that shows the current system has a lot of problems, and we gotta change it. So that's why we implemented UBI. So the second one is that the opposing team continue to mention that the work rate is decreasing. It will decrease if we implement a UBI. But we have several evidence shows that no matter from Alaska or from Iran, it says that if you implement a UBI, the work rate will increase, and that doesn't matter from like different country, because that evidence is proved because that shows if someone receives a money, if the civilians receive unconditional money, they won't increase the dependency on the government. They won't increase the dependency on the money that they get. So they will go to work, and after they go to work, this will solve the problem that they ask is, also so the taxes on, so we tax this on the wealthy, but after the increasing working rate, and the redistribution, the increasing working rate will lead to the benefit for the wealthy, because after increasing the taxes, there's more demand on the market. There's more supply. There needs to be more supply into the market. So in our policy, the increasing working rates will lead to the benefit the wealthy. So the wealthy doesn't get nothing. They get a lot of things. They get their no matter from the increasing working rate and from increasing working rates and helping the other. So the third part of their they say that implementing UBI will cause dependency on government. This one is not proved, and they say that our examples are all too short experiment, but that shows that if people take the money, they will go to work. So that won't cause the decrease of working rates. And so let's make it clear that the opposing side won't gonna solve the current system problems. They won't gonna solve someone who is starving to death but couldn't get the low-income household subsidies, and they will still letting those people go to starving to death and cause a lot of social problems. So
You can finish your sentence next time.
okay.
Just don't go over time too long.
Okay, thank you.
You need more time?
21 minutes.
Just tell me to stop. Finish?
Go ahead. Ready?
Yeah.
So in our summary speech, there are two main things that we want judge to keep in mind. The first thing is the taxing. They just say they will only tax the middle class and the upper classes tax, but the impact between that the people that actually benefit from the UBI is really small. They say that the poverty the actually benefits to poverty is only the certain groups of these people. But they say that to the upper classes, they can UBI can benefit them because it increased the employment rates. But it's only increasing employment rate that what is the benefit that gonna benefits from them? Because we already say that UBI would decrease their incentive to work, so that it leading an insufficient of labor market. It doesn't increase although they increase the employment rate, it doesn't mean that they will actually benefit from them. If you work is actually benefit for the society. And then another point that we're emphasizing is the welfare system. Welfare system is a very targeted system which that only focus on the poverty groups, and it offers extra assistance, not only money, because money isn't everything. And how can you guarantee that every people will actually use those money wisely? And then besides that, they say that welfare system has many flaws right now. But the flaws is, yes, we admit that there are are closest, but the solution is not UBI. UBI only address the roots of the problem, but not the causes. It doesn't change anything. And then they say that they will give every citizen $12,000, but is $12,000 actually can make a really significant change for the whole society between the poor and rich. How can the $12,000 really help people to actually can get a really high education and good environment job? Money is not the things that they will actually can go into a very good company, because money can what they actually need is the high school, but this is what the welfare system are providing right now. We target only to them, not the whole society. And then they say that Alaska and Iran have the successful evidence to prove that the employment rate is increasing. But we have already said that we have a very different situation from Taiwan. And the point is the feasibility, because we have already said that the tax is really high and the cost is so expensive, $3 trillion a year. Can you imagine that? It's really a really big number. And Alaska can do that is because they have the natural oil sources, and Taiwan doesn't have that. So in conclusion, welfare system is unworkable, unnecessary.
Grand Crossfire, anyone can ask a question now. 3 minutes.
Okay, I'll ask first. Where did you hear that we are canceling welfare? We never mentioned it.
No, we're not saying that you're canceling welfare. We're just saying that welfare is already can do that things for
Yeah, but
poverty.
there's a lot
but
of flaws
currently
right
there's
now.
still people outside of the welfare.
Yeah, there's a lot of flaws right now, so UBI is
Yeah,
to fill the
what
flaws.
we are saying is that UBI is not a solution to it.
Yes, it is a complementary.
It is complimentary.
Wait a second, look. Welfare takes a lot of funds to implement. That's
Yeah.
true, right?
Yeah, true.
UBI also takes a lot of funds to implement. So if you're implementing UBI, that means that you cancel welfare in ed.
No,
No,
we're
we
not
don't.
gonna cancel, so we double the taxes, so the current taxes, they pay for the welfare, but we double the taxes, they pay for the UBI. So it won't affect the current
So
welfare
the
system.
current tax is $3 trillion, right? We double it to $6 trillion. We take $3 trillion for UBI and we take the rest that was originally in the welfare for the welfare. So we don't change the welfare. The welfare is still there.
Because their purpose is to fill the hole. There's
But
a lot of holes.
look, but so far you guys have gave us 2 reasons that you guys can increase the tax. One thing that you said is the wealthy can benefit because work incentive increase, which we have rebutted against. And the second thing that you guys said is if you guys can increase the wealth tax because it's unconditionally going to be more fair for everybody.
No, the first thing you haven't rebutted against because you haven't provided us evidence of actual experiments turning out into the poor people not working. But we have a lot of evidence, no matter in Alaska or Iran, telling you that work incentives increase. And when work incentives increase, then
Where is it?
where is it?
That's from the Alaska experiment. I wish I could find the other one, but this is way cheaper.
Wait, what? I don't see.
I didn't see.
I don't see the
I didn't say
evidence.
it's an evidence. So, yes,
Look,
Can you
so
read it out?
Can read it out for
This evidence, no, this evidence is referring to what you guys said about UBI being able to take care of what welfare cannot. This evidence from Alaska right here shows that,
Can you read
look,
it?
What does
Can
it
you
say?
read it?
Can
Can
you
you
read it?
I'll read it. The data shown that the fund of the UBI has a larger effect on poverty among children and elders than for the rural Alaska Native population as a whole. It goes on to conclude that while poverty rates have declined for older people, poverty rates for children have increased. This is echoed by findings suggesting that in both the short and long term, the Alaska Permanent Fund has led to an increase in income inequality and poverty rates.
Why
I
has
circle it for you.
poverty rates of children increased? Do you know why? Usually these
Right.
researchers tell
This is
you-
likely thought, it says right after it, this is thought likely to be because people on lower incomes are more likely to spend their dividend on disposable goods,
No, we haven't.
whereas those with higher incomes are more able to invest
We have
in
an evidence
dividends
that
into
the
other
poor
things,
people,
which generate
80%.
higher revenue.
We have evidence show that 80% of the people, of the poor people, won't spend money on
Time.
alcohol or cigarettes.
Time.
Alright, thank you.
Thank you.
Time will focus. You need prep time.
Yes.
Yes.
You have 30 seconds.
So generally, the opposition side, what the opposition side is saying is that we should not implement UBI because we don't have the funds. So if we solve the fund problem, we can implement UBI because we did prove that it helps the people outside of the welfare system and it helps it increases the job rates. So first of all, they say that we cannot get the funds because we don't have oil. But we proved that by taxing the Taiwanese people by twice, we will acquire $3 trillion, which is what we need for UBI. The second is that they say the wealthy will not be willing to pay. But why do you think IKEA is based in Sweden, a rather high-tax country? It's because these wealthy people, they are willing to invest the money to change as we said in our evidence, the wealthy people are willing to change the environment to help the employees become better workers so that they can make more money for the corporation, which makes more money for the wealthy. So by giving more tax to the government to improve the environment, the wealthy actually benefit from this UBI system. And the next thing is that they think that 12,000 does not work, but we have proved already in our case, in our very start, we have said that 12,000 is the money that you need to survive in Taiwan. So when you don't have monies of food, clothes, shelters, and utilities, then you can use the rest of the money you have earned, whether from your part-time jobs or anything. You don't have to worry about starving, and you can use the money that you earn extra to invest in your education and stuff. And besides, we're not cutting welfare, so the welfare for education and stuff is still there. So I don't think there's a problem for people who want to go education because we've proved that. And the last thing they said just now is that the poor people spend money on disposable goods. But our evidence, which we just said, only
Time. Finish your sentence.
Okay, more than 80% of the poor people, they spend their money on food and education. So we want to say that the UBI will definitely help the poverty and also benefit the rich.
You need that time?
I'll have 1 minute of time.
You have 50 seconds left.
All right, then I'll have 30 seconds.
Okay.
All right, I'm ready to give the final votes.
Okay.
All right, there's been a lot of big arguments in this debate, and I'm going to point out two of the biggest ones. First of all is the tax one. Our opponent said that they can double the tax to get enough money for UBI and welfare at the same time. But, as we have said in our rebuttal speech, welfare and final assets can be hidden or moved abroad very easily. So, you can't just multiply the current number that we have right now of tax and just multiply by 2 and assume that we're going to get that number if we're going to say to everyone and make a policy that tax revenue will double. And you cannot just pass a double tax revenue policy by saying it. You guys keep saying that doing this is great, which it is great, but the actual accountability of can you do this or not is a big issue. And also, taxing the wealthy is not a good idea, which will lead to a lot of rebut from them. Saving, not spending, is what drives growth because it provides capital that firms use to innovate and invest. Wealth taxes, even at low rates, will discourage savings and investments because they lower the return on these activities. Also, they keep giving evidence from poor countries like India, and also they have given from rich countries from Alaska. We've rebutted them both by saying that Alaska has the oil, and India, as it's a lower poverty country, because you guys only stated the experiment from a certain state, they have a different economy from Taiwan, and therefore the evidence that you guys quoted is not accountable and it cannot be implemented to Taiwan, since Taiwan ranks first in Asia and fifth globally in terms of net financial assets per capita. And ultimately, think of it like this. If UBI was so good and so utopian, then why hasn't any country implemented it on a national level for all of history? Alaska implemented it, sure, but that's only a state of the US. And the rest of the countries, they did not have an UBI that was from example 2000 to now, to this day. So, our points on these two concepts still stand. Thank you.
We need some time to,
Should we
wrap
go?
up. It's okay, just, if you need to discuss, you can discuss outside.
Yeah, you need to go to the
Yeah.
restroom or somewhere.
Yeah. Or I can go first. Okay, before I announce my decision, I would like to say that both teams did a pretty good job. Because you know that this is already the fourth round, you should have built up or improved your arguments. So yeah, that met my expectations for not hearing something reoccurring all the time. So good job on that. It was a hard decision to make, but just to give some suggestions for starting from Jianzhong. I know that doubling the taxes is like a big points that you guys are making, and I understand what you're saying, but I just need you to give a case to prove that doubling taxes would work to form UBI. You don't. I understand Taiwan has never formed UBI before, and I understand why you use other country as proof to show that UBI works, but you have to give me. What level are you comparing to? I don't need exactly the same number, but you can say something like, on this level, Taiwan and Alaska are the same, so that's why it worked. On that level, it works. So that's number one. And then number two, during crossfire, you ask them questions. Don't spend too much time to back up your points, because that's the best opportunity for you to attack content. So don't use it you can do it at, when you're doing rebuttal or summary and as such. And then, yes, I have mentioned this. You have to explain why Alaska, Finland, Iran, and Taiwan, we are talking about this on what level? What dimension are you talking about that we can compare these different countries in the same condition? Give me a scale to measure. And then the last thing is the word choice of dying. I know that, yes. And did you get, I forgot, did they give like statistic to prove that a lot of people die in Taiwan because of starving? Do you have stat to support that?
What we want to say is that some people are dying because they don't have the money to survive.
Yes, so tell me the population, how many, how serious?
No, we can't know that because the people aren't getting the low-income subsidy, so there's no statistics for this.
Okay,
Because
so
those people are outside of the system.
And as you were mentioning this, I want to point back to the individual cases that you mentioned, the stealing from blah 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 thing.
Still in students or John Hall brothers.
Yes, so the brothers, so that's individual case. It's fine to use it. I want to stress on the importance of, I'm not saying that you cannot say individual case, but you have to justify why do we need to care about individual case, because they can easily attack you by saying, are we going to focus on one issue and forget about the big picture? So you have to justify the importance for you to mention this very individual case. That's for the Jinjong part. And then for the best pennies, you mentioned a study by economists, which I think has addressed by them. You have to draw the connection between how the study of the text thing means anything in Taiwan condition, because the study, I think you forgot to mention like where this economist did the study, how is it comparable to Taiwan? That's number one. And number two, redistribution of money will cause harm to other things. That's what you said, but you didn't give me examples of what kind of things they will harm. So just try to give more examples to build up your case. What thing are you saying are you going to harm? And then you spend too much time attacking their team in your summary, but like I have mentioned before, it's not just about attacking in your side, and it's not just about backing up your point in your side. So you have to find a balance. Attacking halftime spending it on, improving on your contentions. Tell us again why you matters. And to both team, one last point is find the best point in your points and find their weakest point. To say, for example, I think, what is your contention? I forgot.
Which one?
Okay, let's say, you say something like, okay, in our world, our points on freeing, helping people to be free from economy stress outweigh their points of, solving this in a short term or something. Just tell me something that will outweigh their points to prove your points. Okay, so for my position this time, I go for the best pennies. Okay, and
Yeah, I'll speak on my part. Well, I believe I had you guys earlier in the morning, right? Well, I guess I do believe like you guys prep better on the count side, right? I mean, I'm not just trying to. It's because I heard your other position earlier in the morning, and then you did a good job, Hong, right? Hong, yeah, you did a good job providing the evidence. Remember, I just told you about it, but I know yeah, you had all those. So those were great points. If you could use those research or the evidence you had in your first speaking time, 4 minutes, I think that would be great to kind of back it up your point. And then I think throughout the argument, the debate, it was talking about increasing work rate, right? So you were talking about how I think you should kind of give more example about how the money can increase in the middle and upper class work rate, but I'm not sure if you were aware when you were talking about that. I think it's either time running out or you forgot to come up with a very clear example, right? So going forward, I think that would be very helpful if you end up being on the pro side, because I know con side you guys did a really great job on the on the earlier, right? And then I think it was a good example on the you're talking about Sweden and having the other countries to support the UBI claim, giving everybody's money, and then by the same time you're talking about doubling up the money, right? So I think it's good proposal, but like I think it was Ethan, right? He explained about how are we because there's a lot of private enterprise, right? Private companies, so we can't really. How can you justify, all the private company who actually might end up making more money than the public company because of the accounting and all the different things? So that was very easy, I guess, for their end to kind of through you guys through that rebuttal to you, and then you guys need to think more about the evidence or any kind of examples, because on the different teams, different school, different team earlier, people from the com side also threw out a number. It was actual number. They showed us the evidence, all the judge the evidence, so it was very clear about the amount of people who are gonna be affected by not receiving the UBI money. So you see what I'm saying? Like they're actually having a number from the actual. It was a very recent sources from the news. So maybe you guys can search it up. Whether you guys later on you're gonna be on concept and pro side, that can help you to have a stronger argument. And I think for the best pennies, it was a really good good call on the Alaska because it was a state, right? And then also, I think the oil company are actually owned by it was state owned. It's not really a private owned, so their the way they can distribute money might be different than the cases in Taiwan. And also, it's because of the population, right? I think it was good explanation about how Alaska is like 30. Talking about Taiwan has 30 more times people than people in Alaska, right? So just like how some of the policies, even though we all speak Chinese, like Mandarin, we can't really apply the same political policy in China versus Taiwan, right? So that was a good example of how they using that. And then I know and then I think that it was a great use of rebuttal, talking about how no other nations, were giving UBI, other than just, for example, Alaska, but maybe for a stronger, maybe attack later on. Just try to say that before final focus, because I think that was a really good, if you ever get on Kansai, that was a really good point to mention, because I can't think of any other group can think of a better way to argue against you. So it was a really close call. So I think, yeah, my point goes to best pennies.
Excellent. Okay. I just want to add a few more things. Number one, on the technical level, when you guys have a clash of evidence, don't try to throw another evidence or examples. But what I suggest you to do is to prove the logic behind the evidence or the examples. Because the way I see it, both of you try to offer us like different kinds of evidence and examples. But you guys don't really explain the logic behind these examples or evidence. I think that's very important. So remember, evidence and examples are important. But if you cannot explain the logic behind those examples or evidence, they mean nothing. Okay? So that's number one. Number two, I really like that both of the team relate these notions to Taiwanese context, because in the previous debates, like many of them miss on this point. So thank you for providing like the grounds for a Taiwanese context. But here are some of my takes. Okay, let me go to the positive side of the house, go to the pro sides of the house. I really like that you opened the debate by saying that, with the current status quo, with the current policy in the status quo, it's not enough to cover the people who are in the vulnerable positions. Okay? For example, you give us the example A, B, C, and D. That was great. Okay? Unfortunately, on that point, I think the con side didn't really touch their ideas. You guys only said, okay, we have the current welfare system. I think they're enough because they give us like different kinds of things, not only money, but also other kinds of assistance, for example, in education from training or other kinds of things. But you also need to touch to that. Perhaps you could have said, in responding to the positive side of the house, we know that our current status quo, it may not be perfect to cover the people from different needs, from in vulnerable positions. But we believe that it's more progressive towards that directions. In that sense, you could have provided more with the evidence or the examples. To what extent that the current status quo has been more progressive. So I think that is the way to rebut their argument. Okay, that's number one. Number two, I think you also mentioned, what I really like about your idea is that you try to include people from different social and economic backgrounds. For example, the affluent families. By saying that the rich can also gain some benefits from this. For example, the rich can get more employers, they can get more customers. But if I were the negative side of the house, I would have responded, how is it possible? How long does it take for this rich to get more employees or to get more customers? Because it's not as easy that you give the money, then there will be suddenly an influx of employees to your companies. So where's the logic behind that? Okay, so that's number two. And number three, I think that has been touched. This was touched the negative side of that. When you are trying to say, we understand that this costs us lots of money and we want to double the tax. But again, number one, how is it morally justifiable to implement your policy? Because the rich and the middles have done a lot, have already paid the taxes, then you want to add their burden again. How is it morally justifiable? That's the thing. In that sense, I would have said that the government was trying to shift the responsibility to these affluent people to compensate something that the government is not very good at, because they are not good at managing the people and help the people to get out the poverty line. So that is the way I say, okay? And remember, sequence of ideas. You say that, okay, we have the work rate increase and it will solve the problems. There will be more demands and supply in terms of the workforce and other things. But it's just like you go from A to Z without going through from B, C until Z. So remember the sequence, okay? You just cannot throw a lot of statements but not relating them to one another. So just bear that in mind. And you could have said, because they questions you, you know what, how can you ensure that these people, like the people from poor families, for example, like will be able to spend their money wisely? Okay? Because you mentioned, if we give them money, they will be able to focus on the education. Is it that easy? Don't we know the conditions that poor people, if you give them money, they will just spend them on the basic necessities? Because they can only cover the basic necessities. How can they move up? They move to like the social class ladder if they only spend on those basic necessities. Will they even think about investing? I think that's another question. Okay, so that's one thing. For the negative side of the house, I really like that you responded to all their big points like very actively, but maybe a few more feedbacks from me. You mentioned that. Okay, here's the thing. You mentioned that, okay, UBI is impractical because the current status quo is already enough. So in that sense, I would have expected you to give us more example by saying, you say that, okay, it can give us like different kinds of assistance, for example, education and training. So you could have gone like to providing us the examples of the success of different kinds of aids. For example, okay, we have like education training, we have workforce training, and these are the results. And these are something that UBI cannot give. You could have also like say that, if we are dealing with poor people, we need to deal with their mentality as well. Because as what I said before, if you give them money, it's very likely that they will spend them only on basic necessities without even thinking about future investment. Okay? How can you because their goal is to want these people to climb up the social and economic ladder. But is it even possible? How long does it take? So you could have questions and draw more on that. So that's number two. Number two. I really like the idea that you're talking about the employment rate. Because because we have employment rate, what's the benefit? Because isn't it just the same? But you could have extended more. Don't just stop at the assertion or the statement. Explain, give us example. So it's better for me personally, it's better to have like 2 ideas than 3 or 4, but you have a very solid one and you extend them to the furthest extent and you discuss everything. And this is also another tip. I think you guys have been in both sides, right? The pro and cons. You can guess what the other team will say. So before they say that thing, mitigate them in your speech. So they have nothing to say anymore in the future. So those are from me. So with that, I give the winning point to the second team because I believe they engage your arguments more actively and aggressively, and they touch all your arguments, your major arguments, while you actually didn't really touch their major arguments. For example, how about the current status quo? It's already good because we give them other kinds of assistance, but you didn't really engage on this. You keep on explaining your point. So remember, it's also important to engage to their point. Okay? So that's it. If you have any further questions, please feel free to approach us.
Comments I hear later on you can get. Thank you.
Thank you.